It's a sad one tonight, y'all. So much to talk about. So much to mourn right here on Casterly Talk. This is not the final discussion on Rings of Power Season 2, but the final episodic discussion of these 8 episodes. This is Shadow and Flame, directed by Charlotte Brandstrom, written by J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, the showrunners of the Rings of Power. I, as always, am your host, Alden Diaz, here where we discuss Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. Now we're in ring season. Now ring season has come to a close. Everything is moving way too fast. Time has no meaning. Somehow we're already through this show that we waited 2 years to get back. Now we're going to wait another 2 years, I guess. Unclear on that. It would be nice if, this was network TV. But if it was network TV, I shudder to think of what the Balrog would look like. It would probably be like when CW Flash did Gorilla Grodd. That was a fun time. We all remember Gorilla Grodd on CW Flash. Be sure to memorialize Celebrimbor by liking this video. I stand by that. He's not the only one to be memorialized this time. We will be talking about a few different fallen, I would say fallen heroes. Glug toward the end there. Difficult to say. Jared's here. Hello. Robert Meadows is here. Hello. I am not alone. We're going to unpack this entire finale. We'll have Andres joining us in a little bit. We're going to have our co-host and collaborator Nikki Kumar is on the streets right now celebrating the debut of Narsil. No, he's not on the streets. I think he's at a 70mm screening of Phantom Thread, which I cannot blame him for missing. Because I would also be there if I was in LA and they were doing 70mm screenings of Phantom Thread up the road. But I did tell him to send me a prepared written statement about how he feels about Narsil finally debuting after 2 straight seasons of #Narsil Watch. We have finally made it. We're here, fam. We're back. But also back with me, on top of Elendil being, I guess, like spiritually, emotionally back, even though he's definitely got work to do now. 2 of our favorite members of the Casterly Talk Fellowship are here. We have from Genders, Queers, and Buccaneers in what looks like a morning outfit of their own. We have Andy just in the dark, hood up, a little sad, a little emotional.
Great episode.
Yeah, it was
like, I feel like that's my first words every time you bring me in, but
yeah,
great episode.
Great episode, full of pain. And then also up in, well, for me, it's the 3 a.m. Eastern crew. It's not 3 a.m. For our next illustrious guest when these episodes drop, but she's always with it, always up, making art, analyzing the score, freaking out about the VFX, and leading the Charles Edwards Emmy campaign. Tally is here. Hello.
Tally.
Hello.
Tally, rough day for the Charles Edwards fans, but a powerful day for the campaign.
Very powerful day for the campaign. We're bringing in people left and right. We're going to start making posters and stickers and billboards, and it's happening.
Banners even.
I'm going to make it happen. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
We'll talk about what some would say, ironically, from House of the Dragon and now Rings, both of these seasons have discourse about a horribly violent act perhaps not being violent enough for television and maybe being nerfed a little bit. Completely different in their content. But yeah, when it happened, I was like, I'm disturbed, but also that was like tasteful in comparison to what I feel it could have been. So we're gonna get into everything with Celebrimbor. We're gonna get into everything with Durin's. Before the opening credits, we have a cinematic ending to the reign of Durin III and the life of Durin III. And we had developments with everyone's least favorite fail son showing up to Pelargir and trying to police people and chop down trees. We have Elendil and Muriel fans just in the trenches, just like salivating. And then you didn't get a kiss, but you did get Narsil. And then he left, and she's handcuffed to end the season. And it seems like season 3 is going to be Númenor the season, but there's a lot to talk about with that. And then, of course, a little character called Gandalf, who, not Grandalf, Gandalf.
It could still be Saruman.
It could still be Saruman. Tom Bombadil's like, I read this upside down. You're actually not him. Yeah, and we'll get into Dark Wizard as well, because I think everybody was like, oh,
One of the blues?
Clearly Saruman. But then Payne and McKay came out and were like, almost to a joking degree, but it seemed pretty definitive. Like it would be literally impossible for it to be Sauron based on what they've Saruman based on what they've laid out. So yeah, for it to be Radagast would be one of the most drastic, like, before drugs and after drugs transformation.
It would be so funny though if it was.
Like it would be like Radagast in the Second Age was a real asshole, but then he mellowed out definitively.
Yeah. Radagast was a real preppy dickhead, and then he did mushrooms one time and was just like, I found spirituality in nature, and like really chilled out.
That'll be Bombadil's strategy. It'll be like, just invite him over. Like, we don't need to fight him. Just invite him. We'll get blitzed.
Look, I've done mushrooms and hung out with Tom Bombadil once, and it was a great time. So.
I have no doubt. Shout out to the reprise there. Really nice, little emotional moment after all the pain. So there's a lot to talk about. We don't generally go in order, but I feel like because, when an episode plays with format at all, like this one, this show usually starts with your credits, then unveils your episode. This one decided to do the pre-credit sequence just to rock that story and really move it to the next place of Khazad-dûm. I think it would be fair to say that a lot of people thought after the Balrog tease in season 1 and then the Balrog teases in this season that when we saw him, it was over for Khazad-dûm. Surprisingly not. It's what they've said now in the behind the scenes after the episode, and just based on what you can see of the rocks falling, it's confirmed his existence, but he's going to have to climb his way out over time, is what it seems like, which is an interesting way to play it. I mean, it puts like a fire under the ass of season 3 of like every single thing that happens with this dwarven succession battle is going to be, with the lingering threat of that thing is like a mile deep. But we'll get to all the future stuff in a little bit. Starting, of course, father, son, this I Never Let You Lift Your Hand. It was 3:09 a.m. Eastern, and I was crying because I'll just start by saying that I'm a sucker for father-son stuff in general. I've loved the Durins throughout the first season and this one. Season 1 with the speech, the moment that they have where he says like, I'm always with you in anger most of all, and things like that. And for this to be, presented like it's going to be this fight, or at least violent, of like, if you don't remove the ring, I'll take the whole hand. And then him challenging him, like, do you have the strength to do that? And Durin's perception of strength being different than his father's, and that being the crux of the moment. That Durin's like, I'm not as strong as you because I can't do this. And then without the influence of the ring, this positive view of strength that comes out from his father, where he says, I never let you win. It was always you. And then you got to see a dwarf leap at a Balrog on TV. So that's fun. Tali, we'll start with you. Then we'll go to Andy, just about how you feel about Durin's death and how you felt sort of about where it left their relationship. Because we're not going to have any more of these talks. The Khazad-dûm story will be extremely different without the father-son component. So how did you feel about that ending of affirming him, calling him King Durin right before he died?
It was, so I'm in Central Time, so they come out at 2 a.m. for me.
That's still bad.
It's like 2:05, and I'm just sitting in my dark bedroom, just jaw dropped, because the opening credit sequence hasn't even happened yet. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching the most beautiful, like, 1v1 that I've ever seen on my little laptop screen. And I just thought that it was so visually stunning, and I thought that that was a really good end for him, because I knew that it was coming. I knew that at some point, probably in that episode, that Durin III was going to die, and that it was going to be between the two of them somehow. But it went so differently than I anticipated, because I thought that it was going to be a back and forth between them physically over the ring, and then the Balrog was going to come in and have something to do with it. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, it
Yeah,
made me
yeah.
miserable, but I really enjoyed it.
For sure. And I think, to that point about the subversion, I think priming everybody for a fight and then seeing it be more desperate. Like when he's like, come, look, my son. Like, and Durin just like kind of follows him in there, like defeated. And you're like, oh my God, like, are they going to fall down there and fight? Like, there's so much tension on it. Andy, how did this grab you? We've had some great talks in previous episodes about like losing the parent who's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And for it to now be they are gone for real, but you salvaged the relationship right before to the best that you could. How did that all land for you?
I really hope that I'm going to call him Prince Durin still, just to differentiate. I really hope
he has
Prince
not been
Durin
coronated.
Still like wrestles with what this meant, because they had a brief conversation and then his dad's gone, and like, does that redeem him? Like, does it fix the pain? Does it fix the actions? I do love a character that has a defiant last moment that ultimately means nothing. Like, I love the tragedy of that, and like King Durin jumping at the Balrog, like, it is a final act of defiance, but it doesn't really accomplish anything. And
it might have bought them months, maybe.
Did it even do that? I don't
who knows? We don't know.
In some ways, I feel like he took the easy way out, because he doesn't have to fix what he broke by doing this. And I hope that Prince Durin moving forward into season 3 is not just like, oh, well, like my dad sacrificed himself and like he said something about the arms or the arm wrestling. I hope he's not healed from this. I hope he's still kind of dealing with the fallout from it.
I'm laughing because I'm just imagining Durin like trying to make the emotions land for other dwarves, being like, so you understand, I used to arm wrestle my dad. And they're gonna be like, okay, man, yeah, we all arm wrestle our dads. Like, this, of course we do. Like, what's your point? And he's like, so I used to think that he was letting me win, and he wasn't. People are gonna be like, okay, man, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, an emotional way to start the episode. The Balrog looked incredible, and I have thoughts about the rings now, the dwarven rings that I'm excited to talk about.
And that's the thing. I mean, we might as well just talk about it now because it's a little button on the end. We'll just do the dwarfs all as one topic. But it's like, to your point about the endings that we, the viewer, get to witness, and a few characters sometimes get to witness, that have emotional weight, but ultimately don't have worldly weight, because how could they? Because no one was there. That's sort of also the tragedy of Celebrimbor, who obviously we'll talk about in depth. But his defiant stand, lives on in Galadriel's heart, and she's able to pass on his words and everything. But you'll have that with Durin and Disa here. But yeah, like, it's such a wonderful moment at the beginning of the episode when he says King Durin, and you're like, yeah. And then at the end, you're like, wait, a succession crisis? Like, he didn't tell anybody else that that's what his opinion was, and now he's gone. And it's like, okay, so these other dwarf lords are gonna be like, oh, did he say that before he fought a Balrog? Okay. Like, and then I feel like that's going to be really devastating, that these other lords, including his own brother, who will be coming in season 3, are going to, like, not intentionally, but they're going to undermine the emotionality of this for Durin and be like, yeah, that's cute, we're sorry he's dead, but we don't take you seriously. That's going to be sad. And I think a nice challenge for him going forward that could put him in a place where he's like, maybe I should take a shortcut, and that's some of the tragedy as well that I could see.
Yeah, I was confused that the Balrog didn't just start like cooking dwarfs.
Yeah, I thought he's for sure that like he was gonna punch through.
Yeah, it was like, he's here now. Like, King Durin's greed and kind of ignorance has unleashed this metaphorical and literal monster on the dwarves. But then at the end, when they were like, succession crisis, Balrog in the basement, and we got these rings here, I was just like, oh, okay, no, this makes sense. Like, this is the crisis that is going to make good Durin pick up one of those rings, because how else is he going to deal with a succession crisis? How else is he going to try and deal with this Balrog other than the cursed gift that Sauron gave them?
I agree with you. And Tally, I'll go to you for your thoughts on this, about the idea of like what felt like, oh, Balrog's here, and then it could be a little bit awkward that you have the rest of the episode and you're like, are they fighting a Balrog in Khazad-dûm right now while I'm watching Nori and Gandalf and Sauron? But then to realize like, oh, the rocks collapsed on this guy, and now the horror of season 3 is, there's this thing underneath you. You don't know when it's going to break through or where, but you have this magic ring, which we've established tells you exactly what's going on in the mountain and lets you see the actual veins of the mountain. Once I put those together, I was like, okay, so season 3 in Khazad-dûm is Jaws. I was like, that's what this is going to feel like. So Tally, how do you feel about another season of waiting for the Balrog, but tying it in with the politics and the waiting?
I really respect the Balrog's commitment to coming in as a guest star every season. I kind of love that, actually, because we ended season 1 with the Balrog, and we ended season 2 with the Balrog. So I hope that just actually continues until the end of the show, just because I think it would be kind of funny. But the whole brother thing threw me, as I'm sure was the intention, and it did everybody else. But a succession crisis, I love the idea of. I'm a House of the Dragon girly. I love that stuff. And I think that it's really clever of them. Like, it's a really interesting way to kind of continue to create issues in Khazad-dûm, to keep it interesting and to create conflict that's not just, oh, it's the Balrog, or oh, it's the ring. Like, this is another element that is making everybody's life hell down there. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I am too. And what you're saying about adding another element to it, I think is really smart, because, and we'll get to this later, our season ends on Imladris. Like, we're looking at what we all know is going to be Rivendell. And so statecraft and societies and refuge and like leadership is going to be huge in season 3, just based on that alone. Like, this is Elrond's time to step up and establish his sanctuary and his home, and the last homely house, and this legendary location. And I think, if it's Elrond and Durin, that they don't get to see each other in this episode, but they do get updates about each other, or they're, Durin gets the update that Elrond made it. I think paralleling them as like leaders, and like one is having a positive experience and one is having a horrible experience, I think could be really smart. Not that Rivendell won't have its challenges, and we'll get to that, but I think, it's like we're seeing the fall of one place and the rise of another, I think, very intentionally.
It's flipped too. You'd think that Elrond would be the one going through hell because of the battle, and like, don't get me wrong, he definitely did, but Durin didn't really go through the same sort of physical altercation. But by the end of the episode, like, Durin's in a bad way, I think, and Elrond is in a much better place.
Yeah, and Durin sort of has that thing that, we love when our lovable characters suffer. As much as we hate to experience it, it's good for the growth, and especially for an actor like Owen Arthur, who's been so great in this role, that the challenge that's been building for 2 seasons of like, what am I going to do about my father, abruptly ends, and only a greater challenge awaits right after. And a real test of like, okay, your test has only ever been within the confines of being prince. Now your test is not just being king, but being challenged as potentially being king. So I think all that's really compelling. And I also think that, Disa, even though, she's supporting, the show has a lot of supporting characters that don't necessarily get their own arc, or they get a little something like Poppy or Estrid, or, the Ents or whoever. but Disa has always like had those moments of like really anchoring things. And I think, you know, sometimes you can get away with like a real like action movie cliche of like, no matter what you hear in there, don't come back for me. And then like big romantic kiss, and then like he leaves, and you're like, well, she's gonna go back for him, like obviously. But they are so good. Like they are one of the most believably married couples I've ever seen in anything. And I think I'm excited for her to also be elevated by the situation, as somebody who's always been a more level-headed and open mind than her husband. What does her role in a succession crisis bring? And especially as there's that, you know, pan to the ring still sitting there by the throne. And it's like, she made him promise and it's not going to work out.
We talked about cycles of trauma a lot last week. And I feel like the logical place to go for this couple is for her to become Prince Durin to his King Durin, as he is going to be facing the temptation of the rings, and she's going to have to be the one saying like, do not do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be really tragic to see Durin become his father.
Yeah. 100%. Hello, Extra Cheddar. Good to see you. Yes, couple goals indeed. Tally, do you have any last dwarf thoughts? And then, but real quick note on dwarves before I pass it over to you. This is not in the dwarf arc necessarily, but Benjamin Walker as Gil-galad yelling dwarves. I've watched that clip maybe 100 times today because he puts so much sauce on it. Dwarf. It's like, oh, Jesus, like Gil-galad was so hyped to see these dwarves. So yeah, any last Khazad-dûm thoughts before we move into some of the other smaller arcs? We'll do all the Eregion stuff at the end.
The way that Benjamin Walker said that was so addicting.
It was unleashed.
It's something about the way that he delivered that. I was like, "Oh, okay." The one thing, and this is probably not gonna happen in the show or anything, but I would really love, because Durin has this brother that nobody knew about, and I feel like the implication is that he's not in Khazad-dûm, he's in one of the other kingdoms now, because we've never seen him possibly. So if that is the case, I would love for his location to be Erebor, or what will be Erebor. That would be really cool. Probably it's my favorite kingdom in Middle-earth. Give me their interpretation of what that looks like. I would like to see that, please.
No, I would love that. That's a great call.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it's like, you find those wrinkles that you get to define, and it's like, why wouldn't you like that? And you know, with the condensed timeline, it's like, yeah, maybe Durin's brothers got the Arkenstone or something. Like, I don't know, like we're already meshing, you know, later stuff in, and they want the iconography that like the show does a great job, I think, just like on a visual component and just like on a meta level of like knowing that a lot of us know the 6 Jackson films and the animated ones and the games, of like staying just in the ballpark of the same design, or going to the same art, but like adapting it their own way. Like Imladris being, you know, straight up some of the paintings, and the Balrog basically being almost exactly the same because it's the same concept. Gandalf's staff that we finally see here is just like a slightly beefier, slightly lighter take on, you know, the twisted branch that McKellen's Gandalf has. And so it's all those things that like have familiarity but also newness. And it's like, and I love Erebor that we get to see of it in the Jackson films, the design and the way that those flashbacks look and everything, but to see it lived in, and to see maybe Durin's brother's perspective before he travels and comes over, I think could be really cool. You know, it's one of those like, if I had a nickel, it's weird that they did it twice things with like, we're going to reveal both of these key brothers in season 3. Season 3 will be the surprise siblings season. And they could do it with the Dark Wizard too. He could be like, actually, there are 2 Dark Wizards, and that's how we know that they're the Blues.
The Blues, yeah.
Everyone, if you have a surprise sibling, season 3 is your time. Everyone. And some people who are already extra siblings like Eregion seem like they're being set up for big season 3s, because she finally seems like she's at her lowest and finally broke. So why don't we just go there? Let's talk about Númenor / Pelargir, since those have now been more interconnected as of this episode than they have been in the season. And, you know, this, for better or worse, like I completely understand and sometimes even agree with the criticism of like, this season is basically Eregion the season featuring the other storylines, which I don't begrudge them for. It's like, I don't know
it's not
if
a criticism.
if I had the job, I don't know what the fuck. Yeah, I'm gonna get you as much Sauron Celebrimbor as I can. But you know, I get it, especially if this is your favorite. Like, you know, Tally, this is your jam, this area, and it's been kind of spaced out and like definitely with the promise of like it's coming. And now season 3 definitely does feel like all bets are off, gloves off. That island is fucking toast. So we gotta wait a couple years now, which does suck. But how did you feel about Elendil finally committing to the path of finding Anarion, the reveal of Narsil, and everything that happened on the island proper before we talk about douchebag ass Kemen showing up in Middle Earth again?
I'm so glad that he finally has Narsil, because when he gave it up in one of the earlier episodes, when he gave up his sword and handed it to Kemen's guys, I was like, he's gonna need a new one. And he finally got it. And the design is so beautiful. I love the concept art from season 1. And it's his now. And I'm really excited to see Anarion. I know people were speculating that it's going to be Tom Taylor. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that whoever they cast will be fantastic, because their entire cast is just like, they shook the Silmarillion really hard and all these people fell out of it. So I'm so excited. I was so happy about that. And I was surprised though, because I thought that the vision of him riding away in the Palantir, I wasn't expecting that to be so soon.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You thought that was like during a Calabeth and
yeah, I was thinking that was him like getting the hell out of there for the last time.
Right.
And so we saw that shot and I was like, oh, but yeah.
There's a few. I'm glad you said that, because there's a few times where the Númenor / Pelargir stuff in particular threw my expectations, not positively or negatively, but just like, oh, we're doing that. Like, I thought for sure that, you know, Isildur wouldn't be reunited with his family until the island fell and they all showed up on Middle Earth. But no, it looks like he will be there for the Falling Island. He's on his way. And so Isildur is returning home while his father flees. So it's like they will still miss each other in this like cartoonish, like, you know, cat and mouse of like, hey, I'm back. Where's Dad? And it's like, oof, Dad. Ugh. Dad is a fugitive of the law, you know, religiously persecuted, and he's gone. So that all of that I thought was interesting. But yeah, Narsil got me extremely hyped again, as they have done with some of the ring imagery, as they've done with a couple of the Sauron things and a few other camera moves mirroring Viggo and Hugo Weaving's performances, and the framing and the shot and the same sort of like pull it out look, you know, look close up turn. Like, it gives you that like DiCaprio like point meme energy, but also in an emotionally earned way.
Also that it's like women giving the sword. Like Arwen, if I'm remembering Return of the King, sent Elrond to Viggo with the with Andoril, and here is I was going to call him Isildur, and that's not the right. Elendil getting Narsil from his girlfriend, whose name I also forget. I'm ready for Númenor to get Kryptons, to be honest. Let's just move. Like let's destroy that place.
Krypton.
Let's get everyone to Middle Earth. Like let's move on.
Maybe earlier this season,
these guys suck.
I would have been like, Andy, no. But then, like, yeah, it was not their finest. See, like, literally, I love, like, this is not a real criticism. I don't want anyone to be tuning in right now and take this out of context of me criticizing the amount of extras. But it is funny that, like, there's a 1,000, you know, neighborhoods on this island, and it's a huge societal achievement. and presumably a ton of people. But the only people who really matter are these 30 noblemen. It's like it feels like every important Númenorian scene is a group of 30 people standing and being like, got a great point.
I hate to tell you
got a
this,
good
that is
point
how
here.
our country is also run. With 30 rich white dudes in a room.
True.
You're
Who
like,
are all being
"Oh,
swayed from one
nice
moment to the
talks."
next. Yeah, they're just watching the ticker. It's like the faithful stock dropped 3 points, so we're gonna need to pivot to Sauron stock, which is we'll do season 3 speculation in a later video when we do our season 2 wrap up.
The second they had the freaking magic bird show up, and they were like, "What could this mean?" I was like, "All right, it's time for these people to go." Like these guys.
Politically, like they have pivoted 3 or 4 times over these 2 seasons, and it's always at the slightest superstition.
This sign from God could mean anything. It's just like, all right, guys.
They were like, the bird chose Farazan, and then they were like, the ocean chose Muriel. Then they've been standing around and they're like, bird or ocean? Like, it's very unclear. So yeah, like the Farazan contingent and like the Númenorian 1%ers.
Where's Brainiac? Eat the sun. Let's get rid of these guys. Let's just move on.
I also will say on a note about the score, the Númenor theme and with those drums and everything is my favorite musical piece from the show, and like every version of it, like Sailing into Dawn and like all that, like I love it every time it comes up. However, when they played that evil cop fascist version while they were going after all the faithful, I was like, no, Bear McCreary, what are you doing?
That made me so excited though, because it was like the Númenor theme but evil.
Yeah.
And I was only paying attention to that because I was like, oh, like this is spooky. And then I realized that like an octave above it or whatever is the faithful music, Elendil and Isildur's theme.
Yes.
Playing at the same time. And I was like, he's cooking.
Oh, so good. Speaking of cooking, somebody who cooks all the time on all of the shows, from First Cut, Geeks Color, one of my favorite people, one of the stalwart members of Casterly Talk. Ace is here. Andres Cabrera. Hello, my friend.
Andres.
Yo, what is up?
Andy had met before. Tali and Andres, this is your first time meeting, so hello.
Hi, Tali. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Andres, we're just talking about Númenor and how easily duped these noblemen are by everything, and how now they're going after the faithful. So how did you feel about Elendil being a fugitive of the law, but also getting finally Narsil, this iconic thing that, you know, even the most casual fan will be like, holy shit, that's the sword.
It was fascinating, right? It definitely reminded me of the Creed. I forget, there's like an actual name for it, the Martin Luther Creed. It's almost like this reverse like religious conception as far as going after the faithful versus people who are kind of using that to manipulate Númenor. So I'm almost kind of using that to manipulate their people was very interesting to me. But yeah, him running off with that was just amazing, and I really do feel like it teases a lot for him in season 3, which I definitely am excited for. But I love the Númenor storyline, and I kind of like how they're using those religious themes and kind of flipping it on its head.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the inverse of it, because not that, and from having done Casterly Talk forever with Ken and everything, like we're not like, but in the books, but like it is interesting to note that like in the books, Farazan is duped by Sauron, and that comes later. Now he is privy to the Sauron machinations, but has thrown his own spin on it and accused the faithful of being, either in league with or duped by Sauron, particularly Miriel, which will be interesting to see how that plays in season 3. But yeah, essentially he's saying, hey, all these elf lovers, they're in league with the devil. And, for the same crowd that got duped by bird symbolism and ocean symbolism, devil symbolism is like the last thing that they need.
Time to burn the D&D books.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. They were just like, we're all the Númenorian kids with their dice. Smack. Like, get out of here.
Panic time, baby. Just like the 80s.
Yeah, it's really rough to see. But I love the idea too of like, we've been waiting for his, Anarion, this other son, but like I think just on the TV level of like, if you're just hearing that for the first time, I think it's cool to tell the viewers like, hey, there's another kid out there who is the opposite of the daughter that we've been having you spend time with this whole season, who's like falling into this conservative game with Farazan. He has a son who's a true believer out there that you got, teases of in season 1, but like they never told you, oh, he's coming or we're going to go find him. Isildur had thoughts about it, but he ended up, signing up and joining the quest on Middle Earth. But now, yeah, to know that like Elendil's going to find this son of his who seemed to have had the right idea the whole time, I think is really cool and kind of speaks to the reconnecting of family. So if anyone has anything to say about where that could go or how you feel about Elendil and his family at this point, then we'll pop over and talk about Isildur and Beric and Theo.
I said my piece
Whoever
on
wants to.
Númenor.
Yeah, whoever wants to. I mean, if we're good, actually, I'm receiving now a text from Nikki, who is at the 70mm screening of Phantom Thread, but wanted me to read this about Narsil, since he has been leading Narsil Watch since the first episode of this show. Every time that so 8 weeks in 2022, and now these 6 weeks, he has had Narsil Watch on his Twitter. Been waiting patiently for this sword. It reads, Namarie, hashtag Narsil Watch. You have been a steady companion throughout my Rings of Power fandom. A promise since the show's announcement. A question of when, not if. You were simply waiting to make your grand entrance, and although you gave us a delicious little tease in Season 1, you claimed your place on our screens with the incredibly epic Season 2 finale. Our dearest Sword of Kings, may your time in the show be bountiful. May the throngs of Mordor fear you for at least the next 3 seasons. Serve Elendil well. Dazzle wielder and viewer alike with your splendor. And most importantly, may you continue to advance your most important task, being the representation of the unbreakable spirit. You are the embodiment of hope to all who feel broken, physically, spiritually, or both, and yet maintain their strength. And as our friend Boromir points out, though your shattered fate, your blade stays sharp. The world needs you now more than ever, Narsil. We need your strength and your might. We are so glad you're here. And so through the power I appointed to myself, and with the return of this particular king, I officially declare hashtag Narsil Watch complete. Let's fucking ride. Amen.
I'm just saying Aglass doesn't break.
No, but like, does anybody like slow down to like get Aglass ready for a final showdown in Return of the King? No. Does anyone even grab it in Return of the King?
No.
Just sitting there. It's a museum piece.
No one's worthy. That's why.
I will not insult Gil-galad though, because Gil-galad has never been cooler than he was in these last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So let's jump slightly over. Let's cross the sea real quick. The Númenor story also continues in Pelargir. Theo's story, probably for real life reasons, as we know that Nazanin leaving the show, he has like a small arc, but like it was, becoming more important, as they point out. That's Bronwyn's son. Arondir had called him the Lord of Pelargir. Andres, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Tally, then we'll go to Andy and come back. How do you feel sort of about the idea of like, okay, now we're going to see a clash between the annoying, more fascist Númenorian sect that's going after everyone religiously over here. They're also going to show up and specifically try to go after all this lumber after we have this accord with the Ents. How do you feel about where it's going for Kemen and Isildur, who has some history, and Kemen killed his best friend, which he does not know yet. And this underlying thing of, we made a promise to the Ents, and now Númenor is going to try to ruin it.
Yeah, the first thing that stood out to me was the fact that he went straight to threatening his horse. And did you guys catch that? I don't know. I was like, what? Why are you going after my horse, man? Like the first thing he said, he was like,
the horse is literally in the back of the frame, like, what?
Like looking at the camera, like, me? Like, what am I doing here, man? Like, after everything I've been through. But yeah, it's definitely teasing up quite a bit. Obviously, they've built up Kemen to be definitely one of the most hated characters in the show, and it's definitely going to show this different side of Númenor that we're now seeing, kind of elevated to this new form of, like you said, this fascist regime going to battle with them. And I'm definitely curious to see how it plays out, because I feel like the storyline kind of built down, and then obviously they did build it up with the Ents, but I definitely feel like I wanted a little bit more with them, with the Isildur, and I definitely wanted to see a little bit more of where his storyline was headed as far as his arc. But I do feel like they're definitely teasing that quite a bit for season 3, so I'm definitely excited to see that. And I definitely feel like you could feel, at least I did feel, the Eregion being missed in this. I definitely would have loved him in this scene, or just him just speaking up as soon as he heard lumber, being like, no, we're not doing that anymore. I think that would have been fun, but obviously, yeah, they're teasing up quite a bit, which I really like.
Yeah, Tali, let's go over to you, and I also want to add a point that we didn't talk about, which is, look, no one here on Casterly Talk endorses cheating. You know, ethical non-monogamy, and, like, you know, live your life, but, like, be honest. And we did see Estrid basically be like, yo, I hate my fiance and I want to leave with you. And, like, I wish I was exaggerating, but, like, that's exactly what happened. Like, she's like, he tells me he loves me and, like, we're gonna be together, and he's building the house, and when I saw him put down the cornerstone, I had a panic attack. Get me out of here. And then it doesn't work out, and homie's trying to hold her hand at the end of the episode. She's like, kill me. So how did you feel about that, and how can we get Estrid out of here? And then, of course, your thoughts on Isildur and Kemen and everybody else.
I was honestly surprised that she stayed behind, because the entire time, like, even before the show started, because I knew vaguely who the character was and what she was going to be to the story, I had just assumed this whole time that she was going to end up going with him to Númenor. So the fact that she had to stay behind because Kemen decided to suck and not let her on the boat, I was like, whoa. The fact that Kemen pulls up and he's acting so high and mighty when he very clearly got basically removed from their island and just sent as far as he could possibly be is so funny to me. And the pure fear in his face when he sees Isildur and realizes that, oh, he's not dead, and that's going to be a problem. But I want to know, because they need the lumber and the resources from Pelargir. I feel like that is going to be, because Farazan mentions that in season 1 as to why he's supporting Muriel's idea to go to Middle-earth to wage war, because he could use Middle-earth's resources.
Right.
If he's building an armada for the whole Fall of Númenor thing, for them to deal with the Band of the Valar,
Right.
I feel like that's the direction that they're headed in with that. And I'm really excited to see where that goes, if that's the case.
Oh, that's going to be so devastating. Yeah, and I think, you know, we talked about Durin promising Disa I won't ever use the ring, but it's like, come on now. And then Arondir's promise to the Ents, it's like, not of his own volition, but it's like, none of the Tolkien promises that are broken intentionally. That's the tragedy of them. And it's like, I wonder if that's going to be a theme in season 3, is I like, look at, you know, the folly of thinking that you could just promise your way out of things. And it's like, yeah, Arondir had the best intentions, but it's like, now he's, at least right now, part of the Elven Fantastic Four over here, and he suddenly has leveled up like 10 times and could be a co-founder of Rivendell, you know, because he's an original character. So it's like, who knows what he might do? He could be a key figure there. He could be Gil-galad's new right hand if Gil-galad goes back to Lindon and Elrond stays, you know, to found his new home. So there's all types of stuff that could happen with him. And then, yeah, it's like, you're not there, man. Like, to Andres' point, to enforce what you said, Theo's a kid. And even though he has a good heart, it's like he's gonna get walked all over, or he's gonna die. And he doesn't really have a choice in that. So, Andy, how did you feel about this politicking down at the docks while homies are just trying to hang out with their horses. They're sentient horses.
I don't know like how to quite describe it, but Kemen is real Janos Slint coded for me. Just like similar energy. Like this guy just opens his mouth and I just like throw up in my mouth. I just like I hate this dude. Anytime someone in a Tolkien book or show or game or movie is like, what if we chop down some trees? Just like, no, we're not listening to you.
Forget
You're
this
the
guy.
bad guy. None of that. So like, yeah, I like the politics we're getting. And I do feel like this was more about setting up for next season than resolving anything this season. But I am curious to see where it goes. I will say that like there's not a strong character there right now that I'm really rooting for. Like as soon as Arendir left, I was like, I don't think anyone's really got a handle on this situation. Like this is only going to go bad. No one here has the juice to like keep this ship going the right way.
Yeah, and it sort of makes you wonder, leaving Estrid there, will Estrid, Theo, and Estrid's fiance, like, are they gonna like have to form some sort of rebel group? And like, yeah, I mean, there's still the lingering like Theo theories, like Theo's the Witch King. I've said that before, and I've joked about it, or at least one of the 9. And it's like, you know, this is the show canon, which we always have to remind ourselves. And it's like, will Pelargir be counted in Sauron's 9? And like, maybe it will be, and maybe Sauron shows up and is like, there's an impressionable young youth with a wound from my blade on his arm. Like, seems good. Like, there is that lingering being touched by darkness theme that goes on with a lot of these characters, and he is literally branded in what happened with the Rise of Mordor. So
I don't think he's the Witch King. I don't.
If not the Witch King, then maybe a lesser 9, like maybe like 6, 7, 8, or 9.
Sure. You know? I mean, I could see him one of the.
I'm
9.
ranking them in my mind.
I could see Mouth of Sauron. But I don't know about Witch King.
What a disgusting fate to wish on this child. That'd be so sad.
I want it.
Okay, so yeah, I'm with all you guys. Well said on Pelargir. It is definitely a setup scene. But yeah, for Kemen to sort of realize like that fear, he doesn't really have any power, and he owes this guy his life, but he has to front for the guards that he's brought with him. But when they get back, it's like Pharazôn does not like his son. He's ashamed of his son. He's disappointed in his son. And it's like the fact that Elendil's child is the reason why your child is alive could be a weird psychological slight at them and their family, which I think would be cool to unpack and play with. Because as it stands, you're coming back with Kemen. Isildur is going to have to interact with Pharazôn before he interacts with his own father, who's on the run. So it'll be interesting to see how that tension is mined. Now everything else is sort of the massive multi-sequence Eregion stuff, well, the exception of Nori and Gandalf. Let's do Nori and Gandalf, and then we'll go. So we had the very Empire Strikes Back setup of you can help your friends or you can chase your destiny. And a lot of us were kind of like, well, it's Tom Bombadil, so it's probably like doing one accomplishes the other, right? It's going to be friendship is the answer because this is Lord of the Rings. And then sure as shit, Gandalf basically straight into the camera was like, I chose friendship. And I was like, yes, this is Lord of the Rings. You get it. Like I'm watching Gandalf wake up and realize what story he's in, both literally with his name and then metatextually with the themes. And this might be the only point in the episode where I'm like, all right, Amazon, like you're Amazon, like this is Jeffrey Bezos, like give me 5 more minutes because I love everything that happened. Like if you listed it out, but when Nori's like, I got to walk my own path, I was like, I feel like I'm missing a conversation. And that's probably my biggest criticism of like, I don't dislike that. I think that's cool, especially because of what they set up with her talking about, Burroughs and his legacy and finding what clearly looks like the Shire. And the idea of like Nori Brandyfoot founding the Shire, I think, is amazing. And this like nomad girl becoming the one that ends the nomadic era and gives them home. Beautiful. Love it. I just think before the goodbye, there should have been maybe a little bit of push and pull between them about what she's going to do. Maybe like some classic Gandalf encouragement, which like he is like, yeah, go. But I think maybe if I would have seen her be a little bit more confused for a second or something. Talia, we'll start with you. Then we'll go to Andres, then we'll go to Andy. How do you feel about all of this, but also about the Nori Gandalf split?
I just want to say, I think it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago when I said that I thought that the staff was going to come from the party tree.
You did
and
say
I
that.
was correct.
Yep. You're right.
I also feel like I was missing part of a conversation because their relationship has been kind of the heart of the show to me. Because that's so much of Tolkien is just a hobbit and Gandalf. And their goodbye felt so abrupt, where she left with all of the rest of them. And there was a sad moment between the two of them where they were like, okay, this is it. Like, we're going opposite directions. But I was like, oh, like not even a hug or anything. I was so sad about that. But I don't think that this is the last time that they'll see each other. And maybe it is, maybe I'm wrong. But last season, it ended with Nori and Poppy saying goodbye. And then Poppy followed them, and it was them on the adventure together. So I can't imagine that this is the last time that the three of them are interacting. I feel like Gandalf will meet up with the Harfoots and the Stores again.
Sure. Andres, what about you? How are you feeling about who we can now officially call Gandalf?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with both of you saying that it definitely felt a little bit rushed. I felt like the finale was definitely trying to tackle so many different things at once, and they kind of left this one to be the shortest, or just kind of cut around it to be the shortest. But I also definitely felt with what Tally was saying as far as like missing an embrace, like a long hug, words of encouragement, something to kind of leave us a little bit more satisfied with their relationship, because we spent so much time with them, and because the season was just like Tally said, the heart of the season. So I definitely missed that. It definitely felt a little bit abrupt. It definitely felt a little rushed. This is the Ezra sees Hera moment for anyone who watches Ahsoka.
100%. It is exactly the same feeling where you're like, everything here makes sense.
And you're like,
it's not an issue. It's just like,
I'm
feeling more than they're feeling. Yeah. Like
they weren't
100%.
on set at the same time. What do you want from them?
100%. Yeah.
That's what I felt. Yeah.
Andy,
go ahead.
Oh no. Continue with Gandalf thoughts. Yeah, no, totally.
No. And I just felt like we're missing that for sure. And I agree with Tally as well. Kind of going back to them seeing each other again. For sure, Nori. I don't know about Poppy, but for sure, Nori. I think we kind of have to have that. But I think I feel like you could feel this a little bit more in the editing room, more than any other scene. But that's just
I agree. No, I agree. Yeah, Andy, how about you? How do you feel about where we're at with them, but also the revelations and also the sorcery? It's a brief sorcery, not even battle, but Dark Wizard showing up doing his thing, and then Gandalf doing his thing, and that big Star Warsiness of it.
I love the beauty of Gandalf getting his name and kind of like becoming the traveler. Like that is what Gandalf does. Is he is the pilgrim. He wanders Middle Earth, helping people where he can, and like he learned that from this girl who wandered Middle Earth and helped him when she didn't need to. Like, I think that's all beautiful. I really do hope we check in with Nori still and we get to see the Shire again. But as far as like where we're leaving it for now, I guess I'm okay with it. Like, Gandalf comes in and out of people's stories. So could there have been more? Absolutely. But I'm happy with it here. Evil Wizard, man, I got no clue what's going on there. I'm assuming it's one of the blues, but like he's spooky. He feels kind of like Christopher Lee, which I really dig. I hope he's not Saruman, because I really want Saruman to be just like the most righteous, good paladin coded guy, which is why I really wanted the stranger to be Saruman. I'm fine that it's Gandalf. I'm fine
because you're mean.
But yeah, I'm hoping it's one of the blues, and I dig it, man. Like, I dig a spooky evil wizard. I'm really here for it. His aesthetic is perfect. He feels like he was painted on the side of a van of like a drug dealer in the 80s or a pizza delivery guy. I think it's great. Here for all of it. Can't wait to see more.
Yeah, can't wait to see more.
More wizard shit. Give me more wizard shit.
100%. Like that tease at the end of him at the fortress. Yeah, it was super like, okay, all right. Like we're gonna at least, however it happens, it does feel like we're gonna have Gandalf, the maybe not yet gray, but soon to be gray, rolling up on a evil wizard's fortress.
Yeah, let's ponder some orbs.
Pondering my orb, man. Yeah, I'm with all of you about everything that you're saying. I think, again, it's like nothing about it doesn't work for me conceptually or story-wise, because when I rewatched that scene, because I was like, well, after I got over the shock of the abruptness, I was like, let me go back and really take it in. And when you pay attention to what Poppy says, and when you think about the fact that what Nori says of like, this is their first, I forget her verbiage, but this is their first walkabout, whatever she says. It's kind of like, oh yeah, she's right. Like they had a completely different way of life. They do need her. I just think that like I'm putting that together, and I wish that the characters had. I honestly think that like it's in Nori's character. I thought that Gandalf was going to be like, all right, well, I have to go face this wizard. And Nori was going to be like, well, I'm coming too. And then he'd be like, Nori, they need you. I think that's the missing moment that I think we can infer. But like, I think something a little bit more paternal, like when her father said goodbye at the end of season 1 and gave her those last 3 pieces of advice, about, a Harfa and a square wheel and like all that stuff. I think that Gandalf being like, I love you and I will see you again, but they don't know their way around. They need you and Poppy.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting like a Tolkien-ass line about like, we don't know where our paths will take us, but hopefully they will cross.
Yeah. Some wispy, like
some Tolkien shit on a pillow.
100%. Yeah. So, but yeah, I agree with you guys though about like, I think the Harfoots, Stewars, and Gandalf could now evolve into a place where they become like a great seasoning in the other stories, as they are now all on the move. Gandalf has to handle his business with this dark wizard, but I think like who's to say that these Harfoots these Stewars don't pass through Imladris while it's being established, or they don't pass through Pelargir, or they don't like anyone that is on the move in any capacity. I think it would be cool for them to encounter those characters, mix up the combinations of cast members that get to work together, and bring back some people too, like Nori's family, see them on the road. And then for Gandalf, I think the exciting thing about season 3 is what is he like without Nori, and what is he like with other, not to like belittle Nori at all, but like grown-ups. Like he's been in this, I'm hanging out with my 2 like teenage sidekicks, for this entire trip so far. And it's like, what happens when we get to see Gandalf become Mithrandir next season and meet Galadriel and meet Gil-galad and meet Círdan? Like that's when it's like, oh, like he's important. And also these are people that would probably, at least to a certain degree, have the lowdown on this guy, at least at the high levels, or they would at least be somewhat familiar on a text basis. I mean, the Dark Wizard throws out what do you say, like that Manwë, like Manwë told me that like that you'd be here, or that we'd meet, or I'm paraphrasing obviously, but I think that's exciting. And shout out for actors not having to lie about who they're playing. We finally have cleared the board in Rings of Power. No more lies for anyone.
There was Empire Magazine hosted a screening in London today of the final episode that a bunch of my friends went to, and Daniel Wayman was there, and he was doing a Q&A afterwards, and he was talking about how he's Gandalf, and he could barely get the word out, and everyone on stage was like, "You can say it, like they all know. We all just watched the episode. You can say it. It's okay." And it was like the first time in an interview context that he's actually been able to say that he's Gandalf, and I feel like that's like
Years.
so exciting.
Years this man's been sitting on it. It's crazy,
Yeah.
And for him as an actor, like getting to see him sort of like come into his own and unlock his personality. I love the actual scene of the realization with Tom, and it's like this show does a good job of like embracing the whimsy, where when the Goond and Merrimack said Gandalf, I was like, is that a little bit too like is that a bridge too far into the wink wink? And I thought it was, but then when it got back to Tom, I was like, nah, that rocks. I was like, Gandalf rocks. I'm on board.
I need like a 4-hour lo-fi chill vibes in Tom Bombadil's hut with Gandalf and Tom, just like
100%. We're gonna cut back season 3. We're gonna be at the stars, and we're gonna move down, and they're still gonna be singing.
Singing.
That's all I want.
I definitely need to go back and watch it, but I have to do the Amazon cast thing where they say the name of the actor and who they're playing. I wonder if that switched. Yeah, if that switched over to Gandalf right away, because I think it happened in season 1, if I remember, because I rewatched season 1, and I think if you move the cursor, you could see the name switching as soon as it's revealed in the show. For who they're revealed to play. So
that's fun.
Yeah, that does happen with Charlie Vickers. That happens with Halbrand in the finale.
Yes,
where I remember that. Yeah, where when he does the like, I have been awake since the breaking of the first silence. It's like Amazon's like,
yeah, they're like now he is. Now he can say it.
100%. Yeah, and I think, I'm excited for all that, and for the further RPGification of it. Like, I got my staff, and it's like next season I got my hat, and then like end of next season I smoke weed now. Like, he's gonna be gathering all the essential Gandalf kit.
I got some fireworks.
Yeah, fireworks are awesome. Nori's gonna be like,
from this guy's van in the grocery store parking lot. I got to bring up this comment from Chris in the comments.
Okay.
The guy who might be the Blue Wizard did keep saying like Saruman,
old friend,
very Saruman coded. Not to more
100%.
No,
and they have never been shy about using trilogy dialogue to allude to things, or just book dialogue straight up. I mean, that was the thing in the finale of like, remember Eleanor Brandyfoot, always follow your nose, and everyone being like, okay, all right, if they don't do Gandalf now at this point, I'm gonna pull up the quotes going around about Saruman from the showrunners.
Great.
And J.D. Payne. So McKay says, quote, I'll say something on the record. Given the history of Middle-earth, it would be highly, highly, highly improbable that this could be Saruman. Then J.D. Payne added, if not impossible. And then McKay added, it would almost defy the laws of gravity and physics for it to be Saruman. Which is either the most cheeky, like, fuck with you because we know you know, or they are actively being like, look, we got a 2-year wait. Y'all need to get off the Saruman train. I could see either of those. Because again, reading a quote is much different than hearing a quote. But yeah,
to Chris's point with the old friend thing, like that could just be how like these wizard guys greet each other, you know, like maybe they all say that to each other. So maybe it was them intentionally referencing the Saruman line, but the idea that like, oh, these guys are all in the same frat, like they all kind of say that when they see each other after like, I don't know, 100 years where they were chilling in other places.
Yeah, and it's like we all know canonically in the text and in the adaptations, like the Hobbit has the one line about the Blues where they do that meta joke where Gandalf can't remember their names, and it's like, oh yeah, of course you can't, and like things like that have always been played with. this show could show us like, oh, we don't talk to the Blues because they are susceptible. Like they were
They're
not if
assholes.
not fallen, they are assholes. Yeah. At least like they are difficult. So we'll handle it, and they'll stay in the East. And even the social media for Rings of Power put out a clip today about Gandalf lore, where they bring up the quote from Fellowship of Gandalf saying that he doesn't go to the East. And it's like, yeah, as it stands, it's him sort of saying he's not going to confront Mordor himself, but like this would be a fun way to interpret that quote of like, I don't go to the East because there's inner wizard beef. Could be an interesting take on it. So let's bounce back over to Andres. Andres, I'm going to put you in a position of high pressure here. You get to start the conversation on I was gonna say fall of Eregion, but that's already started. On the now, let's say the burning of Eregion, the full sacking of the city. And I want to start. You are a passionate lover of film and television, and you work in the industry. And so I want to start with this sexy oneer where we come up over and we get to go throughout all the levels of the city and moving through until we get to Galadriel. How did you feel about the direction of the battle from Brandstrom and everything that they did, like on the filmmaking side?
Yeah, I definitely I like that you call that out, because that's obviously the first thing I noticed, and then I went back to see the stitching of it all, the putting together the cuts to see if they had any cuts, and if they did, how did they go around him? There's obviously the digital wonder of going up to the tower after the elf, not the elf, the orc shoots or the orc shoots the elf on the top of the tower. Digital pan is a digital pan up there, but the camera falling with the elf jumping off the roof is an actual guy jumping off the roof, which was really cool. I loved it. I thought it was really cool, and it's definitely a great way to start that that whole siege and that whole thing, which was really, really nice to see. So the camera goes up, it goes towards the door. The Uruk come in, pans back out. I already mentioned the digital shot up to the tower, back down the tower with the elf. And then we see Galadriel show up and come into frame. And the last shot is of her back leaving the camera. So it's a long oneer. It's a really long oneers. And that's one thing that, for people who don't know about oneers, like if it's more than 30 seconds, that is long. So it was definitely really, really cool. And I like the direction style of what they were going for.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think on all the departments to be like that in sync, especially like on a television level, like we're all Game of Thrones and Hot D fans. And it's like, we've seen the evolution of like from season 2 of Game of Thrones, where it's like, we can't even really show the battle. We can only really show like the very edge of it with Blackwater. Like we'll show you the beach of Blackwater, but like, that's all we can afford right now. And then like how those kept going. And now it's like, we're at the point where this looks so good with what Amazon is doing and what they're spending, that it's like, okay, we can deliver stuff that like Jackson movie lovers will be like, yeah, that's Lord of the Rings. But also in ways that like Jackson didn't do, which is not obviously a knock. Those are incredible battles, but it's like you have to find a creative way in. And I think that's what's cool about these directors, these all women directors this season, that Brandstrom sort of being like their rock star, kind of like their one that they positioned as the lead, that for her to be like, okay, what's my angle on this that hasn't been done in a Lord of the Rings battle? And we've seen a lot of cool shit in Lord of the Rings battles, but we've never seen something like that.
I got to echo, because I know I wasn't here last week, but last week's was just that times a lot. I really did feel like that's some of the best siege battle filmmaking I've seen in anything, to be honest. I was going nuts last week. I was screaming at my TV, just absolutely loving everything I was seeing, just with the horses, with the siege, with Elrond, and it was just incredible. I really was losing my mind. So I definitely had to echo just that clip, just that little bit we got this finale, but last week was that times 10 for me. So
someone is going to do the Siege of Eregion like supercut of just the scenes from start to finish, and I'm gonna be very happy about that. Like, there's a supercut of the Acolyte episodes 3 and 7 cut together in order that a friend sent me, which is very, very cool. And I would love to see something like that here, of like Just give me the beginning of the battle all the way to dwarves. Because I will watch the dwarf. He has two. Last week it was when he did form ranks and Elvish, which like I forget what the word is. Like it sounds like he's saying Carolinas, but I know that's not what it is. But yeah, Benjamin Walker gets it. Tally, presentation wise, battle wise, dwarf reinforcements, Elrond pleading for the sacred Jedi texts, just like everything that's going on. Elrond literally being like, "What the books?" In the middle of the battle. How did you feel about this as a cinematic battle? And I will take this conversation as we keep going around the horn more and more intimate until we get to the juice with Celebrimbor, Sauron, and Anatar.
The sacred Jedi text was the first thing that I thought of in that scene.
It's so cute.
It makes me laugh every time I see that picture on Twitter. This show, every single episode, I'm consistently amazed at the quality of visual effects.
Mm-hmm.
It's like film quality, but it's good film quality, because there are the movies that have good CG and the movies that have bad CG. This is like the best CG. You would walk out of that movie theater going, "Oh my god, the effects were so good," and they're doing that every single week, and it blows my mind. And it was so beautiful, and I feel like it would have been really easy for them to make everything all desaturated and gray and gross looking, but they still managed to make it very colorful, even though everything was all smoggy and burnt, which I thought was really impressive. That was something that like stuck out to me, was that they didn't fall victim to that kind of like monochromatic look that so many TV shows, like the dark and gritty fantasy ones, have now. I feel like they still kept it very high saturation, and it always looks so good.
Yeah, and on a visual level, 100%. I love that you brought up color and frankly brightness. Like Andy, last week you brought that up as well, with being able to see the night portion of Eregion so clearly. But like here you have a literal physical fight against Sauron himself in broad daylight, and like how cool that looks, but then how much it serves the story at the end. You know, the sun yet shines. It's like we took them through the night. We survived through the night, and we dragged them into the daylight. And by the time we got to, tea time the next day, the dwarves did show up. We did survive. We did manage to, get away with most of our lives. Obviously, heavy losses and key characters were lost, and side characters. Eregion might have claimed as many people as the Battle of Winterfell. Which, not to drag season 8 discourse into this, but like it's just like when you add it up, like Mirdania, Damrod, Adar, Celebrimbor, Rian, like that's already 5. And yeah, I mean it might be the same, but I love what you're saying about the fact that like the CG is incorporated so well, because that's something that we always talk about with the first Jackson trilogy, which, not to knock the Hobbit, but like really the first Jackson trilogy in particular, of like, look how good this aged. Like that's something that you hear all the time. Like when you watch Helm's Deep and when you watch Pelennor Fields, it's like, yeah, there are moments of like Legolas doing Legolas things where it's like, that's a CG Orlando Bloom, but like, okay, like everything else looks incredible. Like the amount of things that have aged so spectacularly from those movies, and this feels very consistent with that. Like it is a melee with like these orcs and these gross things are happening and all this violence, but like that courtyard where the Feanor statue comes down and everything, like that's such beautiful set design that like anything that is a CG element on there just like works so well with everything, and all the extensions, the set extensions are also seamless, and I thought it was really, really lovely. Andy, overall battle thoughts. Will you be painting miniatures of anybody that you saw featured in this battle?
After last week and then this week, like I want to LARP right now. I like I've been walking down to my basement and like picking up my swords and like putting them back down. I don't have another LARP event for like a month still, so I'm dying. But
Just take up vigilantism. Just walk around town.
I've been painting knights and stuff all week because I've just been so amped up. Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible action. To Andres' point, that long shot is beautiful. If you know anything about like film, you know how difficult a long shot like that is and how rare it is. And it's done fantastic. To Tally's point, like the CGI all looks incredible. I think it's going to age really gracefully. It feels tastefully done. God, yeah, the costumes look great.
So
the drama of it, from form ranks to dwarves, it's all been really, really, really good. And then the entire time it's happening, we have the death of Celebrimbor, which I have some Saint Sebastian thoughts for sure about that. But yeah, it like nothing but good things. Like this all went so hard.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's just get into it. So, I'm drinking. It's coffee, but I'm drinking to Celebrimbor. I said in the chat, leave a like on the video for Celebrimbor. Now that we can just talk about it openly, everybody and their mother has been joking for 2 straight years about Celebrim banner and everything that was going to happen with Celebrimbor. Actually, quick thing. Perfect timing, actually, because we're about to enter this key topic. We have a first-time guest that is joining us. Somebody who a few of us know, and one of my very, very favorite people, fresh off of literally being on air just now on the Bombad cast. I have Jerry Cable is here.
Hi everyone. Yes, yeah, no, something about a wizard never being late and always arriving precisely when he means to, or something.
You got
I'm
it.
sure. Yeah.
You got it.
Hi everyone.
Jerry, Andres, Jerry, Tally, Jerry, Andres.
Nice to meet you all.
Jerry.
Yeah. How's it going, guys?
So Jerry,
yes.
You know, you're joining us right as we're about to talk about Celebrimbor, which like
my favorite topic.
Happy stuff, obviously. But I do just want to say I wanted to give you a quick little highlight before we do that because you and I both love this show. We were both crying about this show this morning. We've talked
tears.
About this show since season 1. But I would like to note something that I love about your relationship with this show going back, and why I want you to touch on Gandalf and Nori real quick is that you have a small daughter whose name is Eleanor.
Yes, I do.
So watching Nori and this little Eleanor grow throughout this show has been somewhat personal for you throughout this. And so I'm just wondering, did you have like flash forwards to like sending her off to like college when Nori left, or like were you a mess in that moment?
First of all, how dare you bring me on to ask me this question? But no, absolutely. I mean, this whole thing. I mean, even at the beginning, I don't know if y'all have talked about the beginning of this episode, that we were absolutely
with a dad.
I was in tears.
Everyone that loves their father or has a dad issue started crying.
The whole thing about I was never pretending you were only getting stronger. Just like absolutely. And again, I'm gonna cry just even thinking about it right now. But when you talk about that relationship of, now we know Gandalf and Nori and stuff like that. And again, they really wanted to dig it in personal for me and everything like that. I don't know why they had a vendetta against me and stuff like that, but it's just, it gives you that flashback, and they really captured it perfectly. Just that, that you have to go your separate ways eventually, you hope you do everything right. And then at that time, that they're able to kind of go and spread their wings and do their own thing, and I was a mess of tears through this entire episode. But it just, no, absolutely. Yeah. It's the relationship of Nori and Gandalf to me, just that innate friendship and the way that they interact with each other, and the way that, again, the whole test was you have to choose your destiny over helping your friends, and the test was you're supposed to choose helping your friends. Was just such a beautiful, just kind of cherry on top of all of that. So yeah, I was a mess, of course. So
100%, and as they say in the timeless classic Wide Open Spaces, she needs wide open spaces, room to make her big mistakes. She needs new places. She knows the highest stakes. Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and now let's talk about someone getting pinned up against a pillar by a spear.
Let's talk about. I'm ready for it. Let's do this.
So let's set the table. Ambiguous hours have gone by since last week. Enough time to beat the shit out of this guy some more and put some more arrows in him. Now, Andres, I know you're going to have to go in a few minutes, so we'll start with you.
That was me, not.
What? That was you?
Yeah.
I just saw AN, and I was just like, okay, cool.
You've done that test before.
You've done it before.
I have totally done it before. Look.
Everyone's leaving.
If there was another AL name, then I would understand your position. So Andy, you have to go in a few minutes.
I got to go.
In the text, this is a little bit more akin to, what happens still happens. Literally, what happens still happens. The spear, blah blah blah. We got it. Like, he got full of arrows. He gets pinned up against this thing. He's hung up against a pillar, like you would, like classic, heraldry and then the banners and everything. Like, it still happened. In the text, it's a little bit more gruesome, and it's more like a crucifixion, and he's paraded literally into the battle. And this was, more intimate and just sort of like out of the way of the battle. Makes sense because of the framing, because of the courtyard. They need that, obviously, for the scenes they're going to do. How did you feel about the way it's presented, about the defiant final words of Celebrimbor, the moral victory, and Sauron being moved to tears by what happens, but left so to interpretation that, Charlie Vickers already, we know, went off script with those tears, and is excited for the fact that people are going to be able to dig into that so much.
I can't picture a way where this was not intentionally using Saint Sebastian imagery, where if you're not familiar with your gay culture and your Catholic saints, he's the gay one. He was chained to a tree and shot full of arrows.
Wow.
And the imagery there is very always homoerotic. He's always, wearing like a robe and like half naked, like all Catholic saints. And he's just, suggestively shot full of arrows. And he was a Roman sympathizer who had been like tricked by the Romans, who are then the people who shot him full of arrows. So the Celebrimbor of it all feels kind of appropriate in that he, was tricked by Sauron, a Sauron sympathizer to some degree, and then betrayed and shot full of arrows. And the fact that this felt like a very toxic relationship this whole time, and then that tear, like it all felt very, very heavy subtextual to the point of just being text that like this is the worst breakup I've ever seen. I thought Interview with a Vampire had the worst breakup I've ever seen, but this might be the worst breakup I've ever seen. And I loved it. Like, it was beautiful. It was tragic. I thought the dialogue was appropriately on the nose. Whenever they say the title of the thing and the thing, it's either like the best moment or like the cringiest. And like, this felt earned to me. This worked for me really well, especially Celebrimbor being the one to drop the Lord of the Rings. Like, I loved it all. They had me. It was completely my jam. Incredible acting from both men. I don't mind that it was less gruesome because the psychological horror all season has been so bad. I didn't necessarily need to see more gore. It was already so horrific to watch. I didn't need more nastiness. I thought it was just as bad.
Now, before we round robin it, we'll go to Tally in a minute. But because you have to go, I just want to get your Adar, Glug, and like whatever last thoughts you have on stuff before you go.
I've been a vocal Adar lover all season. Great character. There was only one way for him to end, and this was exactly the way he needed to go. Him being killed by all the orcs was perfectly poetic and very sad. Is Glug alive?
No, he was for a hot minute, and then he spoke up and got. Sauron whipped around real quick and stabbed him.
Oh shit, man!
Later in the
thought
episode,
Glug made it out of the episode. I must have looked down for a second and missed.
So did
that.
Glug.
Yeah.
Glug thought he made it out of the episode too.
Tragic for Glug. Pour one out for Glug. Glug was I loved a sympathetic orc perspective this season. I really adored it, and they needed to get Adar, and it's like rough that we could have had a more peaceful Mordor option. I mean, like Adar was not great, but he was not as bad as Sauron, and that kind of flirtation of like, do we take a lesser of two evils? And like, nah.
And he gets to, and we'll talk about it more, but he gets to an emotional breakthrough too.
Yeah,
where like he's got one of the Elven rings. He is healed, which was a stunning visual, and like a lot of people predicted that it would happen, and I love the way they did it. Like,
a little less hot.
Crouched over, and he's like, I like him aged 1,000 years on a mountainside.
I like him a little monstrous. I'm and he's talk to my therapist about it. Don't worry, it's fine.
He's got the option. Like he's got the ring. He's got the rejuvenation, and it's like he's so much. And I said this last week. Like he's teetering, and like every chance he gets to be a little bit more Elven, he takes it. He brings up their lore. He speaks the language. He uses the honorifics. All these things that tell you, oh, he's got shame about what he is. Yeah. And he finally gets to the moment where he can choose to act on shame or act on fatherhood, and he doubles the fuck down on fatherhood. And he says, yeah, I had a name. And you're like, like modern nerd shit has trained you to think you're about to get a reveal. And then he says, and it doesn't matter. He's like, because I earned Adar, and I want to be Adar. I want to be dad. And the horror of Sauron being like, they are not children anymore is not like, on one level, it's, they're not kids anymore. Haha. But on the other level, it's like, they're not people anymore. Not to me, Oof.
Yeah. It's like we knew it was going to end this way, right?
Yeah, of course,
like it could only have ended that way. But that doesn't make seeing it hurt any less. Like,
especially because he asks forgiveness from Glug.
So tragic. Yeah. So tragic. So beautiful. Like it's a thing where like Romeo and Juliet starts out by telling you how it ends. And so the entire time you're watching Romeo and Juliet, you know how it ends, but also you forget and you kind of hope it's going to end differently. And a good story can do that. And I think Rings of Power really did that, where like, we're all nerds. We all know that Adar, this original character, isn't making it through this season because Sauron has to be in charge of the orcs. But like, part of us is still kind of rooting for him to make it. And even though we knew the ending at the beginning of this, it didn't make finally reaching this point any less sad and beautiful and also badass. It was a great scene. All the orcs look amazing. Like, I love these little freaks. They're great.
They're fantastic. I cannot wait for like an update on Baby Orc. I hope it's Toddler Orc next season. I want to see this green little. If Mudang can go viral for being slippery and bitey, then we should be able to have Mudang the orc next season. I want to see a little fucker gnawing on its mom's leg, like
one of those big turkey legs for the Renaissance fair.
Yeah, straight by the bone. Yeah,
I'm gonna dip out here. I love all of you. You guys are some of my favorite people. Have fun continuing the chat and talk about Celebrimbor more, because
we will. All right, my friend. Love you. Mwah. I'll see you next time. Okay, so we'll get into Adar, Galadriel, everything. Just wanted to get Andy's thoughts. Celebrimbor, this quote, Tally, we'll start with your thoughts here on what he says. Hear me, shadow of Morgoth. The last words of Celebrimbor is just his way, again, a non-combatant's way of having the victory, being a badass. And the line, for soon I shall go to the shores of the morning, borne hence by a wind that you can never follow. Tally, I don't know if you've ever dropped any diss tracks in your day, but that's got to be pretty high up there in the diss track canon, just in terms of iconic digs before death.
100%. He was saying all that, and I was like, oh, like get him again for me, get him again.
Get him up. Yeah.
I loved. I know that some people were complaining, or not complaining, but just
about Rings of Power.
Never happened before. Just talking about how, oh well, in the books they spear him and they carry him as a banner into battle, and I think that this ending was so much more distressing in a way, where we still get the visual of the banner for the book freaks who were really excited about it. I'm one of them, so so you still got that, but it's just the fact that he died there in that hall and never left the forge, so nobody else outside even knows for sure what happened to him. They're never going to see him again. And the fact that he is still, I was talking about this last week, just the lack of respect and not a lack of fear, but just the fact that he is unwilling to give in to that fear of being in front of Sauron. The fact that he's still just absolutely ripping him to shreds as he's dying. And just talking about, like, you're going to fail. Like, somebody will bring you down, and it's going to be because you didn't, like, give them the time of day, basically, which is what happens. And so I thought it was really well done. Charles Edwards, I'm getting you that Emmy. Don't even worry about it. It's yours.
Charles Edwards, look, they released that little behind the scenes sizzle with Charles Edwards' last day on set. And man, God damn it. It's just like, it's like, it breaks your heart. I mean, like, yeah. And like, this is Casterly Talk. Like, this is a channel that started with Game of Thrones. Like, we're used to this. Like, I'm like, yeah, I've been down this road 100 times of losing a beloved character, but it was something about the fact that he was decidedly more lovable every single time we got with him. Like, Celebrimbor at the beginning of season 1, when he would show up, I even tweeted this once. I was like, every time Celebrimbor comes on screen, I say, this fucking guy. Because he was just all about, like, hustle culture and, like, his own ego and his creations and how great his works were and how great he wanted them to be. And then by the end, you're like, oh my God, you have moral clarity. Like, Sauron, and I think that's part of what moves Sauron to tears, is, like, it's a combination of a lot of things. I think on a vanity level, it was like, I think in an abusive, sick way, he equated Celebrimbor to himself, which he talked about last week. The cycle of abuse, like, as Morgoth did to me, well, you're making me hurt you, like, all that weird shit of, like, seeing himself. The craftsman, the fact that Celebrimbor laughs at his craft before he dies. And I think also that when no one's around, and, like, in his heart of hearts, what Celebrimbor said about being a prisoner sent him back to a place that he didn't want to be, which was the mental place of being number 2, the mental place of being a loser, having lost the war in the First Age, and also having had to grow back from being that black ooze for all that time, being trapped, like, all these feelings of, like, being lesser, this insecurity at the root, even of a god. I think it was so smart of Charlie Vickers to just, like, let me roll this tier and really send this villain to the next level. And then when the orcs come in and ask him what his name is, he drops his little, I have many names, but it is the most haunted version of that line where he's like, I have many names, man. I'm tough. Andres, how do you feel about this emotional showdown between these two guys before Celebrimbor's gone.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's a build-up from the entire season that we had with them, the fact that we spent all season with them, the two of them just talking in that room and just really going back and forth, right? Obviously, leading up to, I believe it was episode 2 or 3 when the manipulations started happening from Sauron and him really tapping into his head and messing with him in a different way to eventually this, which was him coming back. And by him, I mean Celebrimbor coming back and having the one up on him by getting the final word and by getting the final say. I really do give a lot of credit to the performance by the two actors, because I do feel like they gave so much, almost too much. I was like, yo, this just brings some power, chill.
I want to feel good.
Yeah. But it really is amazing that they took it so serious and so heartfelt. And the fact that Charlie Vickers decided to give this kind of performance to Sauron and to always I noticed this, maybe it was just the finale, but I feel like kind of all season he's always kind of on the verge of tears every time he talks to Celebrimbor. Like you could always feel like he's gonna cry, whether he's angry or whether he's manipulating him or whether he's truly sad. You could always see that in his eyes, and I'm always kind of fascinated by that, because it is a combination of kind of all those feelings, right? It is kind of like he is sad and he is angry and he is frustrated and he is trying to manipulate him. So he's doing all this stuff, but at the same time, it really is what he's feeling inside, which is kind of weird for a villain. It's kind of perfect for a villain too, though, because of his first line to Celebrimbor, I believe in the scene, was literally like, "Why are you doing this to yourself?" He's like, "Why are you punching yourself?" Which really goes to show the type of villain that he is. Really, really cool, dense, deep stuff from Charlie Vickers, and obviously Celebrimbor has been killing it all season and being the person that really has to take the blunt of the force, both this episode and last episode. Because last episode he was also going through it.
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. And Jerry, before we go to you, just connecting it to an earlier conversation, the Dark Wizard brings up the idea of pity to Gandalf. Like pity is not going to defeat Sauron, and it's like, oh no, buddy. I read Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
I see the trilogy. Pity does defeat Sauron, and that's the great irony, is that, like, as we know, Frodo taking pity on Gollum turns the tide of not just the war, but the age. It turns the tide of the entire world itself, because of this one act of like taking pity on a creature, not that he likes. He sees him as pathetic and lowly and gross, but like, just like he's a twisted little victim and everything. And for Celebrimbor to be like, you're gonna be a prisoner, like he is almost in predicting the coming of someone like Frodo Baggins, which he says, like, someone will stand against you. It'll be one person, whatever his wording is. Like, he doesn't know the specifics, but it's like he is exemplifying the exact attitude that will work. Looking at evil and being like, this is kind of pathetic, man. Like, that kind of undermines. That's what Tolkien views of evil, and he's right. Tolkien, there's a lot of talk thrown around, a lot of it in bad faith, of like, what would he think if he was first of all, it was his grandson that decided we needed more Adar, a non-Tolkien character, so you can eat that. But then the other thing is that, like, Tolkien would be horrified by what's happening now, because his view of evil is that it's pathetic little guys that can't create anything for themselves. That was a key Tolkien theme, is that evil does not create, it steals and it twists. And we've seen that with Sauron's craft. It's like he had ideas and he was essential, but once the going got tough and he had to make the 9, he couldn't do it. He needed Celebrimbor to do it, and now he'll be able to make this one more, presumably in the 3rd season. But Jerry, this confrontation of Celebrimbor sort of getting the moral victory, and like, he knows he's a dead man, so he can kind of speak his truth, and he gets more energy as he gets closer to his death. He stands up tall. Like, how did that feel for you? Already it's an emotional episode, but at this point it's kind of like you're already locked in after this whole season. Where did it land for you? And did you feel like your feelings on Sauron as a villain changed by the time the scene was over?
Well, yeah, I mean, with Sauron, like we're getting such a more intimate picture of him now than we got, even in like the original films or the books and things like that, And I mean, just to, I don't know, you don't get the like you're saying, you don't get how small he truly is, like as a person, like you say, like the way that Tolkien sees evil, that it's just these small men trying to take from other people. But just I mean, just from the beginning of that scene, just the depravity and just pettiness of him just shooting arrows into him, like he's just like a dartboard there for his for his pleasure and stuff like that. Like he does not, like, people are not people to him. They're just things I can use and play with for a little bit. And it's just it's horrifying for one thing, but again, it's that small little thing, which is why I love so much. I don't know if you guys have talked yet about that confrontation between him and Galadriel.
Not yet.
Finally.
No,
And
we're gonna get to that. Yeah.
well, and I'll say that for a little bit, but just her last line to him is just so beautiful, too.
Oh, go
It's
for it. Yeah,
great, like,
get into
well,
it.
just like that absolute gut punch to him of what she said, you want to heal the world, heal yourself. And
It's so
just
good.
drop off a cliff. Fuck yeah, girl. Hell yeah. Like,
It is so 2024 in a great way. Like,
in the best way, yeah.
It's go to therapy. That's what that is.
Right. I saw someone say, yeah, go to therapy, dude. Like, come on. Yeah. But no, like, but just to have Celebrimbor, it shows, like you were saying, like Tolkien says, like, good is resilient, right? It's like, even in the face of like certain death, good is still going to stand up tall and say, like, you're fucking wrong. I don't care that you think that you're winning right now, but you're a small, pathetic person. You're gonna die alone. You're gonna, like, your end is not going to be good. And just I don't know, man. Like I don't know if you believe me that I pump my fist in the air, and I don't know if that's like a cringy thing to do or stuff, but like I pumped my fist in the air so many times in this.
How much did
episode,
Amazon pay you to pump your fist?
Pump my fist in the air? I believe it was 5 cents a pump.
By the way,
And
I just want
so,
people to know that, like, it's been a spicy day on Twitter, and I noticed a couple of you trying to be smartasses in the comments, and I'm insta banning you. So it's like,
hi.
That's your right. But I've already done it to 2 of you, and I will do it to more of you. This is not the channel where I feel the pressure to act nice and like be diplomatic. No, we're right, you're wrong. If you want to grift somewhere else.
Yeah.
We can make this real quick. I know Andres doesn't play that shit online. Neither do I. Neither does Ken. Like, this is not the place for it. We're here to talk about ideas and everything. Just because, like, we all have our issues with the season. We've already talked about stuff we thought was rushed and everything. But if you're gonna show up and be like, "Oh, but read the books. This sucks. This channel sucks." I don't know. Maybe there's a Lord of the Rings theory out there for you to watch. This is not it.
Possibly. Hey, Bombadcast Thursdays. Come on over there. We will treat you the way you deserve to be treated. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. So yeah.
Anyway, Jerry, yes, I love your point, and I love that you brought in the Galadriel a bit, and connecting to Celebrimbor's death. She was there with him for when he made the decision to have this last stand. And we said, "My place is here," and she carries his words on. Tali, why don't you start us on their fight and connecting to what Jerry said about her sort of, like, we know, similar to, we talk about Star Wars, like similar to Luke, like, just because you overcome dark doesn't mean you won't be tested later. We know she gets tested way into her old age in the Third Age when Frodo meets her, and like, yeah, that's coming. But for right now, to be like, no, the door is shut, and also I know what you're about, and you're the problem. It kind of feels like, and you can agree, disagree, or add to it. It kind of feels to me like the Galadriel arc of seasons 1 and 2 is over, and now final scene with her. She said these things. She's not armored up anymore. Now she's in the white dress, and it kind of feels like, okay, the Lady of Lothlorien starts now. Do you agree with that? Am I reading too much into it, or?
That was what I took from it. And the way I don't know if it was just some, like, a visual enhancement that they did to her, or just the light reflection from the white dress or something, but there is a distinct aura around her that is not around Arondir, Elrond, or Gil-galad when she's up there. And so I'm wondering if that's actually them like being like, this is the Lady of Light now. We're starting that. But the fight between the two of them was my most anticipated scene for the season. Not for any real particular reason. I was excited about getting to see Galadriel versus actual Sauron this time. But when the soundtrack came out, the last Temptation, I think, was like the third to last song on the soundtrack or whatever. And when I was listening to it, I was like, this is what this is. And Bear McCreary cooked. He cooks all the time.
Yeah.
But oh my god, that track, I don't even want to know what my listening stats are, but
I mean, let's be real, Tally. Your listening stats are probably unhealthy, but like in the most passionate way. You have been so on it that like you even got it down to like exactly when and what, because in the teasers we saw that he would switch back to Halbrand for a second, and you like before the episode you were like, it's this moment in the song, in the score is when he will be Halbrand for the fight. And you were 100% right.
in Galadriel's vision, when she sees Halbrand again, I was like, we've never seen that before. That's from something else. That's got to be this part of the Last Temptation song when they're fighting. And I was so correct down to the second. And it's because that part was driving me crazy from the soundtrack. It's like 20 seconds in the song. And it's like battle music, and then it's just Halbrand's theme. Yeah. Battle music, and I was like,
and that little break was her being like, "Ooh, I kind of missed that face," and then she's like, "No, I gotta kick your ass anyway."
Immediately backed
like,
down.
Yeah. She was not, and I also like that it's like how it's like slightly adjacent to what you remember. It's like something's off about it.
It is, yeah.
Which very intentionally,
did that really well too.
There's no grease. There's like less stubble. He looks like Sauron pretending to be Halbrand instead of being Halbrand, which I thought was really cool. Andres, I know you got to go. So if you have fight thoughts or ending thoughts, definitely go for it now.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I thought it was great. I definitely feel the Galadriel of it all and her finally getting her moment. It's interesting because she definitely had an arc, which is really cool because I definitely felt it, her growth throughout both seasons, right? And I think that's something that she needed, especially that moment. I know we kind of not brushed through it, but we kind of quickly talked about it. But the Adar moment where she kind of is like, I've killed more of your children than anyone alive or anyone in existence, and the fact that her hatred of the Uruks, I'm sorry, and the fact that her communication with Adar changed so drastically in that scene, and her just realization of what was actually going on was really cool for me, and I feel like that moment really got me. And then obviously the fight with Sauron was really cool as well. The final moment was cool. I've been preaching about how cool I felt Elrond was these past two episodes. I thought he killed it. I thought the actor Robert Aramayo, killed it as well. I really do like that they talked about it in the inside the episode, but that almost fourth wall break is him looking into the camera with the ring. Was really cool. But that was a great moment that I really, really enjoyed. And I felt that, especially in these past two episodes with him in the ring and him and Galadriel having that moment right before the battle, which was really cool. And I felt like it felt complete after that scene. Last thing I'll say, Eregion, you can't kill this guy. A lot of people were saying he was dead, and I was like, he's not dead.
Look, I'm placing my bets right now. I said this jokingly last week. I'm going to put it down officially. 1 hour, 49 minutes, 35 seconds. Arondir all the way to season 5, baby. Arondir in the Last Alliance. He's going all the way, and then he's going home. He's getting on a ship.
He's unbeatable, man. You can't break this guy down. He's one of my favorite tropes is the warrior with the heart of gold, and the quiet but passionate guy, which is what Eregion is. So
Yeah.
shout out to him. I really do love his performance, and even though he is kind of a small chapter of a larger story inside this show, I really do feel like he brings a lot. So that was my final thought.
100%. So everybody make sure you follow Ace. Links down below. Squad Leader Ace, Geeks Color, First Cut, one of the best. And we'll get you for season discussions and some more stuff coming up. And thankfully, we have another Game of Thrones TV show next year, so we don't have to wait forever to get back into our other world. But is there anything else in particular coming out? Any articles, interviews that you've got?
Yeah, I have a panel this Saturday at LA.
Oh my God, that's right. LA Comic Con this
Yeah.
weekend. Yes.
Yeah, it's a Rebels panel, which is really exciting because it's the 10-year anniversary today, I believe. So come out to my Rebels panel this Saturday at LA Comic Con, room 405 at 4 p.m.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'll see you guys there.
Yeah, thanks, man. All right,
Alrighty, guys.
Talking to you, man. I'll talk to you.
Have a good one, bye.
Nice.
Yeah, building off of what Andre said as we start to wind down, Jerry, we'll go to you for your fight thoughts. But yeah, the Galadriel arc that we've been on of like when we meet her, she's this commander, very warrior first, obviously comes from so much more, her family history and everything, but because of the war and because of the loss of her brother and everything, has become a single-minded soldier. And now, I like that Andres brought up the Adar conversation before Adar dies, where she kind of unpacks the horror of what she did. I've killed all these Uruks, and he forgives her. He forgives her, asks forgiveness of Glug in the same way that Durin asked forgiveness of his son. Like, that theme is all over the episode, and I think it kind of unburdens her. And then even Elrond too, of finally using the ring and realizing, okay, maybe we do. Maybe she's right, even if he's not 100% comfortable with it, and even if he will be vindicated later. To get to that point where forgiveness kind of does, like, or forgiveness broadly, but even more loosely, just like mending fences does get them to the next day. How did you feel about all that stuff as it pertains to her, and to get her to, not that I don't want to see more of Clark kick ass in seasons 3, 4, and 5. Of course I do. But I think kicking ass will be less of her goings on as we go, because she does become, we know she will, she has to, but she's not like wielding a sword in her older age. She's way more magic based, way more about her community and being sort of the matriarchal figure.
Well, I mean, she's still going to be kicking ass for sure. We know that.
Yeah.
But I mean, well, the tongue is mightier than the sword, some might say. She definitely gave it.
Tell that to fucking Glug and everyone else that went out with a sword.
That's true.
No,
but I mean, I think she's she's definitely going to be using more of her words and stuff like that, and I think she's on a good path with that already with the end of that. But just that, the temptations I thought was great. I thought it was handled very perfectly. The performance was very cool, with the way that like Tali was talking about earlier, like the way that she does kind of like lose herself a little bit when Halloran pops up for a second, and everything, and just like almost it's like just it's I don't know. It was not a huge like action packed fight, but it was one of the more exciting parts of the episode. It just
it wasn't like things were exploding or like there was like
no.
It wasn't a bloody fight. It was like contained.
It was a fight for her soul, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. It was a very like I hate to be that nerd that's like, it's like in Star Wars, but like it is sort of like,
I mean,
the way we say
it
that
pertains back to it.
Yeah, like the choreography is storytelling, and like Morgoth's crown being an active weapon in the fight. It's like you don't need explosions or blood or orcs or to get down into where the battle is. Like, no, you could be on a hill in a sort of a closed off section of the fight.
Yeah.
But like that crown blocking her blade and catching it, and him manipulating, moving her movements for her, and like it is their relationship. It's like, here's this weapon of the past. This signifies the war where you lost your brother. I'm literally going to move you and hold you and block you and stab you with the
Right.
past.
Pin you down. I'm going to pin you down with this. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, but just I don't know, like I think you're right. I think y'all are right. I think that this is the beginning. It's the Lady of Light. I
Mhm.
think that she's on that path now. I mean, a lot of it's on that path now. I love that the ending scene as well with Gandalf and Tom. You know, where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, the story's begun and
Mhm.
stuff. You know, and I mean that it's we're heading that way. And so no, I mean, I don't know, man. Just fucking killed it always. I can't wait to watch her tell him off more in the
Yeah.
next season, because I know she's going to.
That'll be the thing for the challenge for the writers is like we can't like Morviv and Charlie scenes are gonna be like
Yeah,
Alicent Rhaenyra scenes in House of the Dragon where it's like fuck, like how do we get more? Like
right.
that's like we gotta keep
Because
contriving them.
this season y'all wrote scripture, okay? Like for straight
yeah.
up, that like
Incredible.
straight up y'all are writing scripture in this thing. Like just
Yeah.
so great, so fucking good. So
Last things, I wrote my little note card. Like, yeah, Adar forgives. We talked about Adar's death. The theme of like going from the orcs having a father to the orcs having a master is sad, and like ultimately the thing I'm most impressed by is that like the balance of sad with hope. Like we just talked about like Rivendell and like Galadriel's arc and like all these things, and it's like it was still a devastating. Like Eregion is a defeat. Like Eregion is like is a dark day in the history of this mythology. But the show knows that you still need to send people into the third season and into the wait for the third season on a high. And I think that's why it's so cool that the elves are beaten and bruised and battered, and they're like these refugees by the river and everything. And like there is sadness there, but when they start to do this battle cry, it's not because they're warriors. These are moms, dads, and kids, and like maybe a couple soldiers that are there, like Vorohil, who I'm glad is alive. But they do this roar as Gil-galad lifts his sword because it's kind of like they're bonded by like having survived, and it's like season 1 gave us Mount Doom, and now we have Eregion. So I feel like for the most part we've talked about everything. Tali, if you have closing thoughts or anything we didn't get to, anything that I'm forgetting, you can throw it in now, or anything that you just like have been wanting to say.
I'm gonna say in 30 seconds, the 8 soundtracks come out on Spotify and Apple Music. You guys should all listen to them. They're really, really good.
Hey.
Second thing that I'm gonna say is we saw Elendil get Narsil. I want to see Elendil get the Ring of Barahir.
Yes. Yeah.
Where is the ring?
Oh, if the Ring of Barahir is Anarion's ring, and he like gives it back to his dad, or gives it to his dad as like a reconciliation moment, or like something like that, that would be cool. Yeah, we got to see that for sure. Yeah, it's like it's crazy to think that we're on the wait now for the third season, and it's like the I didn't think we were going to see the One Ring in this finale, to be clear, but it's like I thought maybe Sauron would contemplate it or would hint at it. Not even. Like they are stretching in a good way. Like it's like there's still, it's cool because like if you're watching this and you don't know anything about anything and you just found this on Amazon Prime, great, you're experiencing a great villain. But if you do know, you're watching this great villain do these horrible things, knowing that he hasn't even gotten started yet. Like we haven't even gotten to the dance. Like he has not even been like, hey, these rings, like what if, like he hasn't done the worst thing that he'll do, even after all this, which is exciting. And yeah, definitely check out these soundtracks. We're gonna keep the conversations going. We'll do more Rings videos here, some deep dives, some rewatches, some book spoiler stuff, some trilogy stuff. Thankfully, we have a Lord of the Rings movie coming to theaters in December, The War of the Rohirrim, which will be in the Peter Jackson canon of the adaptations, but done by this incredible studio, that the same studio that handled The Ninth Jedi, for people that are Visions fans, which is just like, and the trailer is amazing. So excited for that. Jerry, any last thoughts about anything Rings? I know you came later, so if there's anything from other stories or anything that you wanted to throw out, feel free.
Well, I just want to say that Gil-galad at the very end there looked like a freaking Power of the Force figure from the 90s.
He was yoked,
at
right?
the end
He
there.
was-
Did
he
you
was
see
yoked.
that? Do you know? Am I not? Am I? I'm
No,
right,
he looked
right?
big. He looked big.
Like when he, because we were sitting there talking like, you know, darkness is nothing compared to the light, and I'm like, well, if the light's yoked like you, like they ain't got no chance, man.
I also love that
I
he
mean,
took that
seriously.
opportunity to like shit on Galadriel in a funny way.
Yeah.
But he was like,
Oh,
I've
yeah,
never
he
known
did,
you
he
to be such peaceable company just because you were asleep.
Yeah. It's such a dad joke too. He's like, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, you're so good, or yeah. But like, yeah, no, I don't know. Just what a way to end this, because it was, and again, it is very cliche to be like, it's the dark middle chapter, you know, it was the Empire Strikes Back of the, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
We're gonna keep going with this, but just to have like all of that, the losses, the heavy losses, but just to end with such heights of hope, was so incredible. I don't know, just this show has just, I'm sad to see it go. It went too fast.
It did.
Like I feel like we
that
just
is a
got it
criticism I
back.
have.
That's my criticism.
That three at
back.
once. That 3 at once was good for business because the numbers have been great and Amazon's very happy.
I mean, I
about
was
the
sitting
numbers.
there
Been
watching
great.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we all did. I'm not complaining. I'll never complain about getting 3 hours of Lord of the Rings. But the fact that it shortened what should have been a 2-month experience, it's going to be rough waiting for season 3. But as we close out, I will remind everybody, season 3 is going to be big, not just because of the iconic stuff that we know is coming with the Fall of Khazad-dûm, with the One Ring, but because it's going to be basically the Jerry Springer show of Middle Earth. We got Hidden Brother number 1. We got Surprise Hidden Brother number 2. We got Missing Husband. We got Missing Daughter? ? We got Kemen going back home to disappoint his dad. We got Surprise Dad, I'm Not Dead. We got, like, there's so much family drama on the horizon for pretty much everyone involved. We got Nori basically being that tweet of like, help, I accidentally became important at work. Now that she's got to lead this entire caravan of stores that she just met. Like, there's so much drama coming up, and we're going to be excited to cover it. I guess in 2026. Who the fuck knows what the world will look like in 2026, y'all. But for right now, Tali, let everybody know where they can find you and chat with you about these soundtracks.
I am on basically every social media platform at TALIESART, and my website is just taliesa.com.
And Jerry, I love you, man. Where can we find you and the Bombad Cast?
Love you too, buddy. Well, we can listen, you can find me on most social platforms at the Canon Junkie, and then Thursday evenings around the time that this lovely show happens. So you'll have to probably watch you'll have to make a choice, but clearly choose this show and then come and watch our show later, because no lie, we watched a Halloween McDonald's cartoon tonight on stream. And we had a blast. So come hang out with us doing weird stuff. We do weird shit all the time over at the Bombad Cast. Search us. You will be like the second thing you find anywhere. So
that's
go for it.
That's branding, baby.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Of course
as well.
No, anytime, man. We'll get you on for more as we do some off-season stuff and some gaming stuff and other things. Thank you, everybody watching. Extra Cheddar, Jared, Chris Williams, Darcy, Andy, everybody in the chat, and everybody watching after the fact. We really appreciate it. It's been a great season. We're still going to do a full season 2 conversation with everybody that's been on, anyone that wants to come on, people that haven't been on. It'll be probably a long stream, a long sort of very casual, little digital party. For me personally, it's that Alden Diaz, THATALDENDIAZ. Follow Ken Knapsack, our producer and creator of the show, who so graciously allowed me to do and say whatever I wanted Thursdays this entire season and during House of the Dragon. But for right now, we will catch you next time. Why don't you take another look at this man's face for the final time this season? Look at that pretty son of a bitch, ruining lives, girl bossing his way straight to hell. This has been Casually Talk, and we will catch you next time. Goodbye.